The tech industry just performed a magic trick, and 170,000 American workers vanished into thin air. Over the past 18 months, the sector that promised to reshape humanity has been quietly dismantling itself, one layoff announcement at a time. The first 5 months of 2025 alone saw 74,000 professionals shown the door, a 35% surge compared to the previous year. This isn't a correction. It's a controlled demolition. Meta's mass execution of 11,000 employees, 13% of its workforce, shattered its own records. But the real carnage lives in the specialized fields. Programming, once the golden ticket to middle-class prosperity, hemorrhaged 27% of its positions between 2022 and 2024. Geoffrey Hinton, the man who birthed artificial intelligence before warning us about its appetite, now predicts entire industries will be consumed whole. Meanwhile, the survivors are getting paid less to watch their colleagues disappear. Average tech salaries have cratered by more than 12% nationwide. The promise of financial freedom has been replaced by a new question whispered in Slack channels and cafeteria lines. Is this career even worth it anymore? Mass layoffs don't just reduce headcount, they trigger forced migration. Thousands of highly trained professionals, people who once commanded six-figure salaries and stock options, now find themselves displaced in their own country. The lucky ones land at smaller firms, accepting whatever compensation package doesn't require negotiation. The national unemployment rate hovers around 4.2% through mid-2025, creating the illusion of economic health. But that aggregate statistic obscures the tech sector's pain. Only 3 industries show above-average layoffs: tech, finance, and trucking. The tech sector's unemployment rate hit between 3.4% and 4% in May, which sounds manageable until you examine what those numbers conceal. Entry-level hiring has collapsed by 50% since 2023. The unemployment rate counts only those actively seeking work, ignoring everyone who's given up or accepted underemployment. Among the displaced, roughly half managed to claw their way back into employment within 6 months. But employment is doing heavy lifting in that sentence. Only 32% return to tech companies, usually smaller operations with shakier funding and dimmer prospects. The rest scatter across the economic landscape: finance, consulting, manufacturing, anywhere that might value their skills without offering the compensation or prestige they once expected. Companies outside traditional tech have become unexpected beneficiaries of this talent flood. Abbott Labs has absorbed over 200 tech-specific employees in the past 6 months, with plans to hire hundreds more in coming years. Used car startup Kavak joined the layoff parade despite its global ambitions. It's a redistribution of expertise. Approximately 10% of displaced workers migrate into finance, where experience in systems, data, and security still commands respect. Another 8% join consulting firms, while about 6% find themselves in healthcare, an industry racing to digitize everything from patient records to surgical procedures. Large tech companies have perfected the art of the quiet purge. Buyout programs and voluntary exit packages allow corporations like Google, Meta, and Salesforce to trim workforce fat without generating headlines about heartless layoffs. The formula is straightforward. Offer employees financial compensation to leave voluntarily: extra weeks of pay, extended benefits, job placement assistance. Frame it as empowerment rather than elimination, and watch the PR problems evaporate. These companies have weaponized this strategy over the past 2 years. Google recently extended buyout offers across multiple divisions. The collapse of traditional employment has turbocharged the gig economy, with platforms like Upwork, Fiverr, and TopTal becoming primary destinations for displaced professionals. Former senior engineers now compete for hourly contracts in software development, data analysis, and system maintenance. Skills that once guaranteed stability, now auctioned project by project. This model offers flexibility, but without health insurance, retirement contributions, or paid vacation. For most, freelancing serves as a holding pattern, a temporary survival strategy while they retrain, pivot, or simply figure out what comes next. The constant hustle of finding the next contract before the current one expires replaces the security they once took for granted. Some professionals, particularly those with severance packages or savings, are rolling the dice on entrepreneurship. Educational technology, digital health, decentralized finance, emerging sectors where yesterday's employees become today's founders. It's a compelling narrative, the layoff as liberation, the startup as redemption. But for every success story, dozens of ventures quietly implode, burning through capital before discovering that excelling at your job doesn't translate to running a company. A quieter migration has emerged toward government work, particularly in cybersecurity. The Department of Defense, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, and other federal entities have intensified hiring to fortify systems against escalating digital threats. Government salaries typically trail private sector compensation by 30% or more, but the trade-off includes stability, work-life balance, and the appeal of public service. For professionals exhausted by the startup grind and terrified of another layoff cycle, federal employment offers something Silicon Valley never could. Re-entry into the job market isn't equally difficult for everyone. It's stratified by gender, age, and experience. Women face steeper obstacles, with only 31% securing new positions within 3 months of layoff, compared to 38% of men. The tech job market has split into two hostile territories. On one side, extreme demand for elite specialists in AI, systems architecture, advanced automation, and data analytics. On the other, shrinking access to entry-level and generalist roles. Senior professionals in markets like San Francisco or New York continue to command over $200,000 annually, while average wages deteriorate nationwide, particularly affecting those in transition or starting careers. The hiring freezes at top-tier companies aren't temporary belt-tightening, they're permanent recalibrations. The industry that convinced an entire generation to learn to code is now closing the door on that promise. This crisis demands responses that haven't materialized. Reskilling programs need massive expansion. Hiring incentives for new talent require implementation. Social protection for independent workers remains non-existent. Transparency in layoff and hiring processes would illuminate the true scale of displacement. Mechanisms for labor mobility across sectors need development, ensuring this highly qualified workforce finds productive deployment rather than permanent displacement. Educational institutions and policymakers face a growing need to promote programs that help workers transition, facilitate sectoral mobility, and provide support for those caught in the shift. The tech industry sold the world on disruption, innovation, and creative destruction. Now, its own workers are experiencing what it feels like to be disrupted and destroyed. Those 170,000 jobs don't just vanish, they transform into broken leases, delayed medical care, abandoned dreams, and families questioning whether they made catastrophic career decisions. The great tech exodus isn't ending, it's accelerating, and nobody seems to know where it stops. At Market Media, your opinion matters to us. Share your story in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video.